Dawn crawled across the snow-blanketed courtyard of Winterfell like a pale ghost, first brushing the ramparts with pink, then seeping downward to the ancient stones where frost had crusted overnight. A light wind sighed through arrow slits and stirred the banners on the gatehouse. Jon felt the chill even through layers of boiled leather and black wool, but he did not step inside. Instead, he watched the horizon, as if the sunrise might answer the unease pressing in his chest. Ghost padded at his side, silent, red eyes gleaming beneath the fluff of new snow gathering on his fur. Behind Jon, the castle roused itself. Smiths striking iron to wake the forges, stable boys shoveling out stalls, pot girls banging lids in the kitchens. Morning at Winterfell carried the rhythmic certainty of a heartbeat. Yet something in that rhythm had faltered 3 nights ago, when Bran Stark, still and distant in his weirwood-carved chair, announced in a thin voice that the truth of Jon's birth must be known. Jon recalled the moment with the clarity of a blade's edge. One breath he had been half smiling at the crackling hearth, believing himself Ned Stark's bastard still. The next he was Aegon Targaryen, son of Rhaegar and Lyanna, entitled by blood to the Iron Throne. He managed neither protest nor denial, only numbness filled him, a hollow ringing behind his ears. The defeat of the Night King, once his sole purpose, now shared space with a revelation vast enough to drown empires. This morning brought no relief. Bran had spent the intervening nights warging into ravens, scattering them southward in dark pulses of wings. Jon had seen one message with his own eyes, ink in Bran's precise, spidery hand. Rhaegar Targaryen wed Lyanna Stark in lawful secret. Their son lives. His name is Aegon. The North bears witness. The sealed scrolls bore the direwolf and the 3-headed dragon entwined. Crimson wax pressed beneath Maester Wolkan's ring. When Jon asked how many had been sent, Bran simply said, "Enough." Thus ravens flew to every lord and lady Bran had marked. To the Vale, the Riverlands, the Reach, and beyond. Some would take days, others weeks, but each carried a tremor that would shake the realm. Jon shifted, feeling the weight of a secret no longer secret at all, and brushed snow from his eyelashes. What were swords and spears compared with words? Swords killed men. Words could break kingdoms. Footsteps crunched behind him. He did not need to turn to know whose they were. Samwell's breath came in little puffs as he eased to Jon's side, mittens clenched around a ledger thick with fresh parchment. "I couldn't sleep," Sam muttered, though Jon had not asked. "Kept hearing caws in my head. Every time I shut my eyes, another raven flapped across my dreams." Jon offered a ghost of a smile. "Feels the same when awake." Sam opened the ledger. Quills and ink flecked his mittens. "Maester Wolkan allowed me access to the rookery records. I thought if we knew which lords received letters first, we might predict whose allegiance could shift soonest." Allegiances. The word tasted bitter. "We still have the dead to fight. And fight them we will. But politics won't wait for winter to end, Jon." He corrected himself, cheeks brightening. "Aegon." "Don't," Jon murmured. Sam studied him. "You're not angry at Bran for sending the ravens?" "Angry." Jon tried the word on his tongue, found it did not fit. Rage was hot, wild. What he felt was colder, a hard frost creeping across ground once fertile. "Anger would be simpler," he said. "I understand why he did it. We asked Sansa to summon the North. We asked lords we barely know to pledge to a queen they have never seen. Bran thinks truth will bind us. I hope he is right." Sam nodded, though uncertainty clouded his eyes. He bent over the ledger, quill scratching. Around them, the wind carried laughter from young stable hands tossing snowballs before duties dragged them away. For a heartbeat, Jon envied their ignorance. A door clanged open beneath the battlements. Arya emerged, scarf wrapped high, hair loose. She strode toward them with the same light step that once crossed Braavosi rooftops. "The small hall is ready," she said, eyes flicking from Jon to Sam. "Bran wants everyone assembled. Lordlings and knights, armorsmiths and wet nurses alike." "Everyone," Sam squeaked. Everyone, Arya confirmed. He says the North must hear it from his lips, not rumor. People gossip faster than ravens fly. A flicker of admiration stirred in Jon. Bran, the quiet boy tethered to visions knitted through time, had found resolve colder than the wall itself. Yet, admiration merged with dread. A secret whispered by moonlight to a few close friends was one thing. The same truth shouted before hearth and hall another entirely. "We should go," he said. Sam shut the ledger and followed. Ghost padded behind, white as the snow itself, his presence as reassuring as it had ever been since that day atop the wall, when direwolf and bastard became brothers. They crossed the courtyard. Armored men hoisted spears upon shoulders, practicing drills under Sir Brienne's watchful eye. Davos Seaworth barked orders near the forge, ensuring fresh arrowheads were counted and boxed. All of Winterfell bristled like a hedgehog before a storm. Carts of grain stacked against the outer walls, barrels of salt pork rolled into storerooms, casks of lamp oil lugged into cellars. Supplies for a siege against death itself. Jon breathed the scent of iron and ash and horse sweat, smells he understood better than parchments and crowns. Could a king prefer such smells? He did not know. The thought slipped away as they reached the small hall. Inside, torches flickered against wooden beams blackened by centuries of smoke. Long tables had been pushed to the walls, benches angled toward the dais. People packed the space, northern house banners stitched on cloaks. Mormont Bear, Gloverfist, Reed's bronze faces, and lesser sigils seldom glimpsed beyond their own keeps. Among them milled men of the Vale, Aaron's falcon perched in silver upon deep blue, rivermen wearing trout and willow, even Lady Alice Karstark with her diminished retinue. On a low bench beside the dais sat Grey Worm and Missandei, unsullied yet attentive in foreign silence. Bran waited beneath the direwolf carved into the back wall, his weirwood throne pulled in from the godswood. The roots of the carved face twined up the chair's arms, white against dark oak. His eyes, one a placid gray, the other reflecting something far older. Swept the crowd without surprise, as though he'd watched them gather in a dozen visions already. Beside him stood Sansa, hair plaited in the style of their mother, her expression as composed as tempered steel. Between them on a pedestal lay a battered crown, the circlet of the kings of winter, forged in age-dull bronze. Jon felt hundreds of eyes pivot to him as he entered. Whispered breaths rustled like dry leaves. Sam veered toward a side bench. Jon hesitated, then moved down the center aisle, Ghost threading at his heel. At the foot of the dais, he stopped beside Davos and Brienne. Neither spoke, but Davos' weathered hand squeezed Jon's shoulder with paternal reassurance. Bran's thin voice filled the hall, quiet yet carrying. "Thank you for coming." The murmur stilled. A truth, once hidden, walks among us now, and Winterfell must carry it to the world. You have all prepared to fight the army of the dead. But after that long night, there must still be a dawn. We cannot build dawn on lies. Sansa leaned forward. You will hear claims that threaten loyalties sworn in good faith. Some will deny them. Others will seize on them to sow chaos. Hear the truth here, from our own mouths, before rumor twists it. Bran's pale hands rested on the arms of his chair. Jon Snow, raised as my brother, is not the son of Eddard Stark, and a woman unknown. He is my Aunt Lyanna's child, conceived not by force, but in lawful marriage to Prince Rhaegar Targaryen. A hush like falling snow spread over the room. His true-born name is Aegon Targaryen. His claim to the Iron Throne comes before that of Daenerys Stormborn. The words drifted through the torch haze. For an instant, no one moved. Then Lord Wyman Manderley's great bulk shifted, chair creaking. The Lord's jowls quivered as he spoke. We bent the knee to the king in the north, Ned's son. He caught himself. To Jon Snow, we pledged because we trust him. Does your truth unmake that trust? Ben? No, Jon answered before thought. I am still the man you followed into battle against Ramsay. The same blood pulses in my veins. Yet that blood is dragon's blood, called Lady Lyanna Mormont. The girl's voice fierce. Does the North now serve a Targaryen? Her words struck deeper than any spear. Jon swallowed. I have bled for the North. I will bleed again. Name me what you will, but I remain yours. Whispers surged. Sansa raised a hand. The Raven's Bran sent Carrie Maester Aemon's testimony from the Citadel, Prince Rhaegar's annulment by High Septon Maynard, and parchment sealed with the Stark direwolf confirming Lyanna's handfasting. The evidence is ironclad. Sir Jon Royce, craggy brow furrowed. He may be true-born Targaryen, but would he press his claim above Daenerys? How many rulers do you mean to give us, Stark? Eyes flicked to the unsullied captain. Grey Worm's shoulders tightened, though his face betrayed nothing. Missandei's lips parted, but she held her tongue. Jon drew a breath like winter water. I never sought a crown. I bent the knee to Queen Daenerys for the realm's survival. That has not changed. Words are wind, Lord Glover muttered. But deeds remain. Davos rasped. If the realm wins this war, it will be because of the Dragon Queen and the king who rides with her. Think on which matters more. Bloodlines written in ink, or lives burnt by ice. Maester Walken stepped forward. Scroll in hand. There is more to consider. His voice trembled slightly. The High Septon's record states that Rhaegar married Lyanna, yes, but also that the prince's first marriage to Elia Martell was dissolved in the eyes of the Seven. That means Elias' children were legitimized by the annulment. Should any ashes of kings landing survive the sack, their claim. Enough. Sansa cut in. Dead children lay no claim. Do not unearth them for sport. A murmur of assent bubbled, touched with discomfort. The hall felt suddenly smaller. Torches popped resin into the hush. Bran's expression had not changed, but when he spoke, his words glided over the tension. The truth is a river meeting the sea. You cannot hold it back. Jon's blood makes him a bridge between north and south, ice and fire. On that bridge our final stand may rest. You must decide if you cross it or burn it. Silence settled again, heavy as fresh snow upon branches. Somewhere near the rear, a child cried out, and the sound seemed impossibly loud. Jon's heart hammered. He tasted old fear. Of being an unwanted bastard, of never belonging. Aegon Targaryen might rule 7 kingdoms by right, yet feel endlessly adrift in 8. The hush broke when Arya came forward. She faced the crowd with gray eyes sharp as the needle at her belt. I rode with Jon through the Riverlands. She said, voice low. I watched him guard the wall. I saw him die for his brothers, and rise to fight again. If you doubt his loyalty, doubt mine as well. I am Arya Stark. The wolf blood in me runs true. Her gaze swept lords and small folk alike. Who among you has bled more for the North than my brother? A nervous laugh escaped Lord Serwyn, stifled as quickly as it came. Men exchanged glances. Lady Mormont folded her arms and nodded once, stout as a stone shield. One by one, others inclined heads, some in respect, others still warring with doubt. But the current shifted, not toward rejection, but toward cautious acceptance, as though they sensed that to spurn Jon now would unmoor them at the edge of the world. Bran's eyes closed, lashes pale against his cheeks. When he opened them again, they shone with a strange depth, reflecting dancing torchlight. The ravens fly on. Soon every hall from Dorne to the Wall will know. Some will call Jon a usurper, others a savior. War breeds judgment, peace breeds envy. Yet the Night King cares for neither throne nor lineage. He marches. Then no wonder. A ripple of foreboding shivered through the hall. Jon felt the hush deepen into something icy, ancient, inexorable. His own secret seemed small against that tide. Bran lifted one hand, thin fingers curling on the weirwood arm. Look to your blades and your hearts. When the dead arrive, remember which living man stood with you against them. Judge him then, if you must. With that, Bran signaled to Podrick, who struck a small bell. Its chime rang once, then faded. People began to disperse. voices low, like birds shaken from roost at dusk. Some lingered to peer at Jon, as though expecting him to sprout wings or scales. He endured their stares. Even as they drifted away, the echo of Bran's pronouncement remained. Aegon Targaryen. Sansa descended from the dais. Well. She breathed softly. The seed is sown. Jon met her gaze. Will it grow, or poison the soil? That is for tomorrow. She touched his arm, a sister's comfort. Today, we have done what we must. He nodded and turned, boots crunching straw strewn near the door. Ghost shadowed him. Sentinel. Outside, snow fell thicker. The horizon blurred into swaths of white, broken only by black pines and the flicker of torches atop the battlements. A world of endless winter. He found himself walking without aim, past the kennels, past the smoked meat sheds, until the godswood drew him. The ironwood gate creaked, and stillness embraced him like an old cloak. Snow lay ankle-deep beneath the red leaves of the heart tree. The face in the trunk wept sap blood, its eyes carved wide, as though even a tree might be startled by Bran's ravens. Jon knelt. "Father," he whispered, though he did not know whom he addressed now. Ned, who raised him with stern kindness, or Rhaegar, whom he had never known. "Guide me." The words seemed small in the hush. Behind him, the gate grated. Footsteps approached, light, measured. He did not turn until Bran's chair wheels crunched snow beside him. Bran looked on the heart tree as though conversing with it. "Do you see him?" Jon asked quietly. "Father?" Bran's head tilted. "I see many fathers. Yours stands among them." Jon exhaled, breath a cloud. Did Ned approve this? Sending ravens? Ben. Bran's sightless gaze flicked to him. Ned Stark's love for you was a wall. It kept you safe but hid the dawn. The wall must fall for the sun to rise. Cryptic as ever, Jon pressed palms to cold earth. "You have changed everything." Everything was changing already. Bran's voice carried neither apology nor pride. "We only hurry what must come." Jon laughed, bitter. "Hurry? The South will tear itself apart. I scarce convinced Daenerys to sail north. Now this, she will understand in time. She's lost her claim." Bran's eyes clouded like rising fog. If the Dragon Queen loses herself to fear of a crown, she was never fit to hold it. But she will not. She was born for more than iron chairs. Jon dropped his head. Snowflakes gathered on his dark curls. "What was I born for? To unite worlds." Bran's tone softened, almost human. "You are the song of ice and fire. The last verse is not yet sung." Jon shook his head. "Songs will not feed armies." "No," Bran agreed. "But hope will." Jon rose, dusting snow from knees. "Hope feels thin beneath winter. So does steel, until it is forged." Bran's gaze drifted upward, following lines only he could see. "Your fire will be tested. Feed it." Jon thought of Daenerys, of her dragons wheeling in cold sky. Would she see alliance or betrayal when she learned the realm now called him Aegon? He pictured her eyes, blue as a summer sea above the ruins of an ancient city, and feared. Bran spoke again, softer than the snowfall. "South of here a lioness twists in her den, sniffing blood in the air. A rose unfurls poisoned petals. A kraken stirs. The realm gathers daggers, brother, daughter. Where they strike will depend on the tale our ravens carry." "Then so." Jon glanced at the heart tree's red-stained mouth. "Can you not guide them?" "I guide," Bran murmured. "But I do not rule. Choice remains." Footsteps crunched anew. Davos, shoulders dusted white. "The smiths ask after you, Jon." "Lord Snow, begging your pardon." A quick grin. "They want your eye and the dragon-glass spearheads." Jon nodded. Duty provided clarity where lineage tangled him. "I will come." Bran wheeled away toward the gate as quietly as he had arrived. Jon followed Davos back toward the living throng. Above the battlements, A raven perched alone, feathers ruffled by wind, then flapped skyward toward the blank horizon. Afternoon stretched into pale gray. Flurries thickened. Within the armory fires roared. Sparks cartwheeling up chimneys. Jon inspected crates, stacked waist-high, dragonglass arrowheads glinting black-blue, spear tips honed to lethal points. Gendry clattered hammers with unsmiling focus, muscles slicked with sweat that steamed in the cold air each time he stepped outside for cooling buckets. Around them smiths and apprentices hammered, quenched, and sharpened in a ringing chorus. Jon hefted a freshly forged longsword. The obsidian edge drank torchlight. He swung twice, testing balance. It felt like holding night given shape. "Fine work," he told Gendry. Gendry shrugged. "Steel sings truer when it knows what it's for." Jon slid the blade into a scabbard of boiled leather. "And what is that?" "To keep good men breathing." Gendry wiped his brow. "And women? Arya's been pestering me for twin daggers half the day. Shall put them to use." Jon managed to smile. "She always does." A horn sounded on the outer wall. One long note for rider approaching, followed by a brief pause. Then a second. Friendly banner. Jon exchanged a look with Davos. News travels fast. They emerged into swirling snow. A lone rider cantered through the gates, standard snapping. A crowned stag. "Lord Gendry, no." Gendry turned beside him, so this rider must fly the Baratheon of Storm's End, which meant... Hint? The man dismounted and threw back his hood. Sir Mathis Rowan, steward to Lady Shireen Baratheon's appointed castellan. Snow dusted silver-streaked hair. He knelt at once before Jon. "Your Grace." Jon stiffened. "I am no grace. My lady bids me address you so." Sir Mathis rose, producing a sealed scroll. "Storm's End stands with Aegon of House Targaryen, blood of the dragon and the wolf. We pledge ships, men, and grain." Gasps rustled among the gathering soldiers. Jon broke the seal, Baratheon stag, stamped in golden wax. Inside, Shireen's careful script affirmed the pledge, quoting oaths long spilled in dragonfire and rain. He read twice, scarcely believing. Storm's End had not sworn to any king since Stannis burned. Now they bound themselves to him. A crown he had never claimed. Davos' grin fought grief and fondness as he touched the scroll. Shireen would stand proud. Jon folded parchment. "Send her our thanks. We will speak more soon after the battle ahead." Sir Mathis bowed. "We march at your command." When the steward departed to the stables, Jon found Davos studying him. "First banner flies north," the Onion Knight murmured. "Others will follow. Or oppose." Jon tucked the scroll into his belt as though it weighed 1,000 pounds. "I sought no banners." "Banners seek stories," Davos said. "Yours spreads like wildfire in a dry field. Best you mind where it burns." Night descended early, smothered by low clouds. In the great hall, supper passed in murmured conversations fractured by worry. Sansa kept order, pouring mulled wine, praising stew thick with venison, ensuring men who would die soon felt warmth now. Jon ate little. Each time a door opened, he half expected to see Daenerys, snow in her silver hair, eyes simmering with questions. She remained beyond the Dreadfort tonight, riding south-flanked patrols with Jorah and the Dothraki vanguard. After the meal, Jon stood by a hearth licking coals red. Heat lapped his face, but could not thaw the knot in his gut. Sam joined him, posture timid, as if fearing to intrude on a king's brooding. "I wrote Daenerys," Sam said abruptly. I thought she should hear from someone she trusts before rumor." Jon turned, startled. "Thank you." Sam fiddled with his mittens. "I told her the realm will need both of you. That she must not see rivalry where there is none." Jon looked back into flames. "But there is, Samadal. Paper or no, there always will be." Mentioned. "It needn't be." Sam's round face tightened with determination. Rhaegar annulled his first marriage because he believed in prophecy. He thought you would save the world. If that's true, he was wrong about only one thing. You won't do it alone. You'll do it with her. Jon's laugh this time held a trace of warmth. You may be right. You may also be an optimist doomed to disappointment. Then all. Better an optimist than a corpse. Soon we may all be corpses. Not tonight. Sam gestured at the hall where men drank. Women knitted socks. Grey Worm stood sentinel beside Missandei. Arya sharpened a dagger. Look around. Life holds 1,000 claims. Loyalty, blood, anger, love. Set anyone above the fight against the dead, and we all lose. Jon breathed, nodding slowly. The knot eased, though faintly. He clasped Sam's shoulder. Rest, my friend. Tomorrow brings more ravens. Sam departed, feet dragging. Jon lingered until coals dulled. He strode to the yard, head lifted. Snow still fell, but thinner. Faint stars blinked past cloud rips. On the parapet above the gates stood Bran, in his chair. Yes, but somehow atop the wall walk as if placed by silent hands. His cloak billowed like dark wings. Jon ascended stone stairs, boots scraping ice. You see something, Jon said when he reached him. Bran's eyes glimmered milk-white. Many somethings. Tell me one. A ship approaching White Harbor under false sails. In her hold lies an assassin with a Dornish dagger. Jon inhaled sharply. For me. For anyone who stands between lions and crowns. He did not need ask which lion. Cersei d. Of course she would send blades north. Cheaper than armies. Quicker than vows. Can we stop him? Perhaps, Bran said. Tides change. Jon folded arms against wind. What else? A black-winged shadow passes over King's Landing. Bells toll and dragons answer. Bran's eyes cleared, color fading back. Some futures diverge. Jon pressed fists to rough stone. I cannot ride 2 wars, Bran. I. Not armies of dead and living both. Then so. You must, for they are the same war. All the living against all who would end life. Dead, lion, or crown. Below, a horn sounded thrice. The wall call for White Walkers. But here only a drill. Still, the eerie notes shivered Jon's spine. Bran turned, wheeled away along the parapet, leaving tracks in fresh powder. Alone Jon looked north, where an unseen night swept closer each heartbeat. He wished for the simplicity of brotherhood at the wall. A vow spoken beneath a starry velvet sky when he believed monsters only legends. Now he knew legends breathed, and blood bore secrets sharp as swords. The truth Bran scattered would soon light beacons of trust and torches of revolt. He must stand between, shield raised. Ghost's white head emerged on the stair, ears pricked. Jon knelt, burying fingers in warm fur. Stay near, he muttered. The direwolf licked his cheek once, snow-cold tongue, wild breath. Together, they faced the darkness beyond Winterfell's lights. High above, ravens wheeled beneath the moon. Black scrolls of fate inscribed against the stars. A.K. Snow-mantled clouds rode the sky like great gray ships as Winterfell labored beneath them. Its forges panting orange. Its storerooms swelling with barley and saltfish. Its courtyards churned to slush by 1,000 boots. The ravens Bran had loosed were already bearing fruit. Some sweet, some poison, and each dawn seemed to disgorge fresh tidings onto Sansa's council table. Jon read every scroll she placed before him, but the letters blurred together after a while. Oaths of loyalty from minor houses eager to stand with a future king. Screeds of outrage from proud names who would never kneel to a dragon's get. Cautious queries from Southron lords, who smelled advantage in chaos. A few cried treason against Daenerys. A few begged him to march at once and sweep aside the lioness in King's Landing. All of them assumed he wanted what they wanted. None asked what he himself desired. He scarcely knew any longer. Desire felt like a boy's luxury, and the boy called Jon Snow had died on a table in Castle Black. On the afternoon 3 days after Bran's hall speech, Jon stood on the outer wall beside Tormund Giantsbane, gazing northward through swirls of blowing ice. Tormund had reached Winterfell just after dawn, with a ragged column of wildlings in tow. survivors of the slaughter at Eastwatch. Their faces were wind-burned, their clothing stiff with frozen blood, but their eyes were alive. That was more than could be said for the others, those who now marched beneath tattered greenish banners of skin, their dead hands bearing spears rimed with frost. The Night King had taken Eastwatch 2 nights past and wasted no time pressing south. Tormund had escaped on a half-collapsed stretch of sea ice, dragging his folk behind him while whites howled across the dark waves. He told the tale without embellishment, but the horror in his voice needed none. Now the giant of a man rested hairy forearms on the parapet, breath puffing. "They're coming quicker than last time, Crow. Like wolves on a fresh scent." He spat over the wall. "Your fancy queen better hurry." Joan's gaze lingered on the horizon, a white knife between land and sky. "She will. She's nearer than you think." So they said, at least. The previous night a raven from the Dreadfort had arrived with Tyrion's neat script. Daenerys was riding hard with half her army, Dothraki, unsullied, the last of the Second Sons, and would reach Winterfell before the next moon. Drogon and Rhaegal flew above her column by day, hunting by night. Their shadows alone, Tyrion claimed, had scattered 2 small bands of the dead that blundered too far south. But the dead were endless. Shadows could only scatter so many. Tormund harumphed. "Dragons are good. Fire's better. Got any wildfire left from those mad southerners?" "None." Joan's fingers tightened on the frozen stone. "But we have dragon glass enough to arm every man twice over." He wanted to sound confident. Instead he heard the weariness in his own voice, like old leather stretched thin. He cleared his throat. "Rest your people tonight. The larders are open to them. Then, they'll eat, don't you worry." Tormund clapped him on the back with a meaty hand. "Then they'll stand. Wildlings don't kneel, but we stand. Remember that." Jon almost smiled. "I do." As Tormund lumbered off, he looked south across the yard where smiths hammered blades against anvils that rang like bells of iron. The air tasted of snow smoke and hot metal. Beside a brazier, Gendry Baratheon showed young Ned Umber how to seat an obsidian dagger into a dragon glass-tipped spear. Nearby, Arya danced through a practice form, feet silent in the snow, gray cloak fluttering like a sparrow's wing as she feinted at a straw dummy. Jon watched her for a moment, marveling at the fluid certainty of her motions. She moved like someone who knew exactly who she was. The thought pricked him, so he descended the stair and headed for the great keep. Inside, warmth struck his cheeks and set his eyes stinging. He passed under vaults, hung with tapestries older than any crown, trudged up a narrow stair, and shouldered through a heavy door into what had once been Maester Luwin's turret. Bran had chosen it for his working chamber. The boy? No. The young man sat in his wheeled chair before a tripod bearing a polished obsidian bowl. The room smelled faintly of pine resin, and something older, like rain on stone that had never seen the sun. "You look tired," Bran said without turning. Jon managed a grunt that was half laughter. "I am tired." He joined Bran by the window. Below, the Godswood's red leaves sighed in a fitful gust. "Have you seen Daenerys?" "I see many roads. On most. She arrives tomorrow, near dusk." Bran's voice was cool water. "Not all roads, though." Jon swallowed. "What changes her course?" "A lane of polished marble. A woman in golden armor. A thin blade painted with manticore venom." Bran's pupils dilated, swallowing the gray of his irises. "Shadows fork like rivers. I cannot hold them all." "Then tell me what you can." Jon laid a hand on Bran's shoulder. It felt thin beneath layers of fur. "So we can guard against it." Bran closed his eyes. "The assassin I warned you of has landed at White Harbor. He wears a sell-sail's face and carries letters that grant him passage through any gate. If he reaches Winterfell, the blade in his boot will seek a king's heart. Yours or any heart wearing a crown." His lids fluttered. "He travels with actors bound for the castle. A troop called the Laughing Lemurs. They left the harbor at dawn in black wagons." Jon felt the world tilt, as though the stones underfoot had shifted. "Actors. He recalled a fair in King's Landing once, long ago, where mummers parodied lords with masks and bawdy songs. No guard would bar such merriment from a war-haggard castle. When will they arrive? Tomorrow, Bran murmured. Unless the road delays them. I'll set scouts. Jon turned to leave. Remember, Bran said. Ice is not the only chill in winter. Distrust has a frost of its own. Jon paused, hand on the door. Then we burn it with truth. Truth burns hotter than any flame. Bran's lips curved in something not quite a smile. Careful, it does not burn you as well. Jon descended the tower with the words clinging like cobwebs. Truth, lies, crowns, daggers. He felt trapped in a maze of spinning blades. Yet the path Bran offered was clear. Find the assassin, stop him, and pray no other blades slip through the cracks. Evening bled purple across the sky by the time he reached the courtyard. A column of riders from House Serwyn clattered through the gates, their horses blowing steam. Sansa received them at the steps, voice calm as falling snow. Jon allowed himself one breath of pride in his sister's grace before duty pulled him on. He found Davos near the smithy, sleeves rolled, marking crates with chalk. Ser Davos, Jon said. I need men on the King's Road tonight. Rangers who can melt into woods and watch for travelers. A troop of actors, 5 black wagons. One among them carries Cersei's dagger. Davos' brows shot up. Actors. Bloody splendid. Trust a Lion Queen to hire mummers when soldiers fail her. He wiped soot on his cloak. How many scouts? 6 pairs. Rotate them. Send Ghost with the first pair. Davos nodded briskly. I'll see it done. And Davos, quietly. Let no word spread. The old smuggler gave a wry half-bow. Secrets kept, lord. I've smuggled worse than silence. Now. Snow fell thicker as night deepened. Jon ate a bowl of turnip stew beside the hearth in the armory, sharing jokes with Gendry and Podrick until even Pod's shy laughter warmed him. But each time a door thumped, he reached instinctively for Longclaw, and the others noticed. Fear made poor company. At moonrise he took pale Ghost through the God's Wood. There he found Arya perched on a broken branch, watching snowflakes melt on her glove. She slid to the ground as he neared. You're hunting, she observed. A test. Jon lead. Bran wants to gauge our patrols. Arya's mouth quirked. He already knows their measure. Jon exhaled mist. Then I'm hunting hope, little sister. Will you help? She studied him. In the moonlit snow, her eyes were chips of winter sky. I'll help. They walked together beneath the red leaves, Ghost pacing ahead. Jon told her of the assassins, of Bran's vision. Arya's only response was a soft hum. She pressed 2 fingers to her belt, where a narrow blade slept. Actors carry trunks, she said at last. Some trunks are large enough for a man who wishes not to be seen. You think he hides with them? Perhaps. Or perhaps he plays the greatest role, the harmless fool. Her smile flashed, gone as quick. I'll greet them at the gate. No, Jon began. But she had already turned away, steps soundless on new snow. Ghost followed, white shape fading into darkness. Jon felt both relief and foreboding. If anyone could sniff out an assassin, it was Arya. But she courted danger as a dancer courted music. When he returned to the Great Hall, Sansa was settling quarrels between Lady Karstark and Lord Glover over billet rights. Jon endured an hour of hashing straw allocations before Sansa dismissed the nobles with crisp pleasantries. As the doors banged shut, she sagged on a bench. I used to wonder why Mother retired to her solar after feasts, she muttered. Now I think she fled for her sanity. Jon half smiled, then relayed Bran's warning of the assassin and the lemurs. Sansa listened, fingers steepled. We'll double gate guards, she said, but quietly. No alarm. He saw tension ease in her shoulders when he rose to leave. He almost asked her what a crown felt like from her vantage, if it too dug thorns into every waking thought. But another time, sleep eluded him. He paced the battlements, counting stars until clouds swallowed them. A horn call echoed once in the distance. Only a watch change, he told himself. but his hand gripped the ice-rimed stone so hard his knuckles cracked. At false dawn, a boom of wings shook the air. Shadows swept across the courtyard. Men shouted. Horses screamed. Jon raced to the yard as firelight burst across the sky. Drogon's vast shape banked over the towers, Rhaegal close behind, green flame reflecting off his scales like living emerald. Snow fountained from rooftops under their downdraft. The dragons circled once, twice, then landed beyond the godswood, in the broad empty pasture Jon had cleared for them. Their arrival thundered through the castle, a roar of relief, awe, and sheer animal terror. Jon's breath plumed as he hurried across the yard. Dothraki outriders thundered through the open gate, braids snapping. Behind them Unsullied marched in perfect rows, spears upright despite the ride. At their head rode Daenerys Targaryen, cloak streaming scarlet, silver hair swirling. Jon reached her as she dismounted. For a heartbeat they simply stood, each searching the other's face. Around them soldiers slowed, hushed by the meeting of two fires. She spoke first, voice raw from cold. I received Samwell's letter. And I am here. Her eyes flickered across the walls, the snows, the distant shapes of dragons settling. If the realm means to crown you, let it. But not before we survive the night. I never asked for a crown. Neither did I, once. A ghost of sadness touched her smile. But thrones chase those born near them. She reached to brush snow from his shoulder, a small, almost shy gesture. Jon, Aegon, whatever name is yours, you have my sword, my dragons, my life. He felt warmth bloom in his chest that had little to do with dragon fire. And you have mine, he said. We fight as one. Tyrion limped close, cheeks ruddy above his collar. Lovely, truly. Shall we discuss sleeping arrangements before my toes freeze off? Nah. Jon laughed, tension spilling from him like cracked ice. He beckoned grooms, ushered Daenerys inside while Unsullied established perimeter. Through the morning he guided her through Winterfell, reintroducing her to Sansa with a diplomacy Tyrion frankly admired. Daenerys bore the Northmen's wary bows with chin high, though Jon saw pain flash behind her eyes when some lords neglected to kneel. She did not press the point. Instead she spoke of strategy. Holding the choke of Queen's Crown, mining river ice near Moat Cailin, using dragons to thin the undead's vanguard each twilight. Even skeptical Lord Glover grudgingly conceded her knowledge. By midday, a blizzard clawed across the yard. But no one retreated. Soldiers hauled canvas to form trenches where Unsullied could spear wights funneled by barricades. Dothraki brightened dragonglass scythes over braziers. The yard rang with hammers, hooves, and shouted orders in a dozen tongues. Amid the chaos, Jon climbed to the roof of the broken tower with Daenerys. Wind whipped her hair silver about her, and snow limned her lashes. They spoke little, but their silence was companionable. Beneath them Winterfell lived, breathed, prepared. For the first time since Bran's revelation Jon felt something like hope. Fragile as icicles, yes, but shining. That night, a feast was called, not of indulgence, but of resolve. Bread, onions, roast haunches, ale by the gallon to chase winter from bones. Musicians plucked lutes, and for a few hours war withdrew to the edges of candlelight. Jon sat between Sansa and Daenerys, sipping mead thicker than honey, trading nods with men who yesterday doubted him. It felt almost like the night before Blackwater. Another life. Halfway through the meal, the doors of the hall groaned open. A blast of snow whirled in with a group of travelers cloaked in sable and motley. 5 wagons waited in the yard behind them. Black wagons. Actors, trumpets, bright masks. Jon's heart froze even as he smiled for the watchers. Davos across the hall rose subtly. Arya drifted toward a pillar. Gendry's hand tightened on a carving knife. The troop's leader bowed low. The laughing lemurs, my lords and ladies, we bring jest and jape to gird brave hearts against dread. Cheers erupted. Men starved for distraction. The players paraded forward, shedding snow, exchanging bawdy quips that drew laughter. Jon heard none of it. His gaze roved masks, hands, boots. A tall man in motley crimson and gold tumbled across the rushes. Young up with theatrical flourish. He removed his mask. Handsome, narrow face. Eyes too cold for his grin. Jon's blood ran icy. The dagger would be concealed well, Bran had said. Perhaps in the boot? Or beneath that fluted collar? Daenerys leaned to whisper, but Jon's gaze locked on the tumbler. And in that instant, the man's gaze locked on him. Something, recognition, hatred, flared. Steel hissed. Before Jon could cry, warning, Arya's dagger flashed under torchlight. She leapt from the pillar to the tumbler, knocked the mask aside, drove her blade into his exposed wrist. A blade clattered to stones. Slender, black, wicked. The hall exploded, men shouting, benches overturning, unsullied surging. The other players shrieked. Arya twisted, drove a knee into the assassin's gut, slammed him to the floor, blade at his throat before he could blink. Silence howled. Even the fires seemed to pause. Jon strode forward, fists clenched. Unsullied pinned the troop. Grey Worm pressed a spear to the assassin's sternum. Blood dripped onto rushes and dark beads, steaming. "What is your name?" Jon demanded. The man bared teeth. "Kindly white, my lord." "A fool, and nothing more." Arya pressed harder. He hissed. From his doublet, Davos plucked a parchment. Cersei's seal broken, the lion rampant. Jon scanned the words. Payment promised a fortune in gold, for the heart of the bastard of Winterfell or the Dragon Queen, should he find her. Proof by severed head. Gasps rippled. Daenerys stood, face pale as driven snow. Tyrion's eyes burned. Jon raised his voice. "Hear this treachery. The Queen on the Iron Throne sends knives in darkness while we fight her war." He looked to the assembled lords. "Is there any here who doubts where the true enemy sits?" Faces hardened. Lord Serwyn spat. Lady Mormont's small fist slammed the table. The hall thundered with jeers for Cersei Lannister. Sansa's voice cut through. "Guards, imprison the players until the battle is done. No harm to them. Fuel for our forges may be scarce, but mercy rarer still." Jon searched her eyes, found agreement. He gestured, unsullied, hauled the troop away. Arya wiped her blade on the assassin's cape before stalking off without a word. Feast resumed, but laughter rang thinner. Yet Jon saw unity where doubt had festered. Northerners clapped unsullied shoulders. Dothraki traded wine with Glover men. Sometimes an enemy's dagger bound allies tighter than any oath. Later, in a quiet corridor, Jon found Arya cleaning her dagger. "Thank you," he said. She shrugged. "I like plays. Hate bad actors." He chuckled despite the tightness in his chest. "You saved more than one life tonight. Killed only one." She sheathed needle. "More will come. I know." He touched her arm. "Be careful." Her smile was swift as moonlight on snow. "I am careful. They are careless." Morning dawned brittle blue. Scouts returned with dire news. The dead had reached the ruins of the last hearth. They would be at Winterfell within 2 days. The castle became an anthill kicked by giants. Walls bristled with new spikes of dragon glass. Cauldrons of pitch were hauled to parapets. Archers practiced by torchlight, vaulting arrows, tipped obsidian. Daenerys flew sorties with Drogon, burning pockets of whites that strayed too near scouts. Rhaegal, ridden by Jon, patrolled opposite flank taut. Riding a dragon still flooded him with awe, but no joy. Each flight showed the encroaching storm clearer. On the second night since Daenerys' arrival, Theon Greyjoy reached Winterfell with 50 Ironborn and a boon. Yara had retaken the Isles in Euron's absence, and promised ships to harry the dead along the stony shore. Jon welcomed him with a hard clasp. Old wounds lingered, but war washed many sins aside. That same night, Bran called a council in the library. Candles' gutter smoke made ghosts of shelves. Around the long table sat Sansa, Jon, Daenerys, Tyrion, Davos, Brienne, Grey Worm, Tormund, Jon Royce, Lyanna Mormont, Alys Karstark, Samwell, and a silent figure in black Sam introduced as Maester Maladon of Old Town, expert in ancient magics. Bran spoke without preamble. "The Night King will be here by tomorrow's dark. He rides a storm that hides his army from eyes in the sky. They will strike at sunset. A murmur. Tyrion steepled fingers. How many? Fewer than once, Bran said. Many fell to Dragonflame in the gift, yet still more than us. Silence roared. Daenerys looked around the table. We break their spear against our shield. Dragons will burn their core. Unsullied hold the trench. Dothraki ride flank to harry and retreat. Northmen reserve behind the inner wall. Wildlings guard the trees. And me? Asked Bran. You, said Jon, will be bait. Gasps. Bran did not blink. The Night King wants me above all. He will come. And will be waiting, Jon said. Ironborn around the godswood, archers above. When he shows, dragons descend. We end him. Tyrion's brow furrowed. A bold plan. If it fails, then we fall back into the crypts and pray the stones hold, Davos muttered. Sam looked ill. Jon caught his eye, nodded grim. There were worse fates than praying in dark. At councils close Daenerys lingered. When others drifted away, she faced Jon amid dusty scroll racks. If the Night King falls and we live, she said softly, what then? Jon wiped sweat from his brow. Candlelight made her eyes pools of molten gold. Then we keep living. We rebuild. Together. He reached for her hand. If you'll have me. She squeezed his fingers, but her gaze held question still. And the throne? He exhaled. Let it wait for dawn. When the sun rises, perhaps the world will look different. She studied him as though memorizing the lines of his face. Very well, she said. I will wait. They parted like two flames quivering in a single candle. Close, yet apart. Jon found Ghost prowling outside the library door, and walked with the direwolf to the battlements. Snow swirled in eddies, glowing in torchlight. Soldiers drank quietly around braziers, sharpening blades already sharp. Fear tasted metallic in the air. Below, between keep and godswood, a pyre burned. The assassin's body, stripped of motley, consumed by fire. Arya stood alone beside it. Jon joined her. She did not look up. His name was White. She said. I wondered if that was truth. Jon watched flames lick bone. You gave him mercy. I gave him justice. Mercy comes later. She flicked ashes from her glove. Tomorrow we may die. I don't want mercy then. I want to live. He rested a hand on her shoulder. You will. Promises. She smirked. Keep one for yourself. He left her with the fire and walked to his chambers. Sleep came fitful, haunted by dreams of ravens bleeding ink onto snow, of a crown melting in his hands, of a frozen throne rising from Winterfell's yard. He jerked awake before dawn to horns blaring. 3 blasts. The dead were upon them. Armored within minutes, Jon strode to the wall. Through thinning snow, he saw torch lines bobbing beyond the outer trench. Pale shapes shambled between trees like ants across parchment. The Night King's storm roiled overhead, clouds swirling unnatural green, crackling with silent lightning. Ice frost bit his lips. Below, Unsullied advanced to trenches of oil. Grey Worm's voice rang, and torches ignited the moat in liquid fire. The flames cast a flickering barrier, red and gold dancing on thousands of pallid faces. But the dead did not slow. They hurled themselves into the flames, stacking corpses until others clambered across. Arrows hissed down. Dragonglass shattered bone. Still they came. Above, a monstrous shape ripped through clouds. Viserion, dead wings screaming blue flame. Jon's heart seized. The ice dragon dived at the battlements, frostfire spilling. Men scattered. But from the south Drogon answered, jet roar, flame crimson. The dragons tangled, sparks and snow swirling around them like sparks in a forge. Jon mounted Rhaegal, heart hammering, and kicked skyward. Air knifed his face. He saw the Night King riding by Zyrion's neck, spear of ice in hand. They clashed, flame against frost. Rhaegal's jaws snapped, but Viserion rolled, blue fire searing Rhaegal's wing. Pain screamed through Jon's bones. He hung on, directing Rhaegal to loop, to strike again. Below, Dothraki screamers charged through a gap in the trench, araks blazing with fire oil. Whites met them in a tsunami of claws. Horses went down. Men burned, rose screaming. Through it all, surged a tide of bones climbing over their own dead to breach Winterfell's wall. By Godswood Edge, Bran waited. Eyes rolled white. Ironborn encircled with crossbows loaded obsidian bolts. The Night King's lieutenants stalked the field. White-skinned generals with crowns of bone, raising spears that called fresh corpses from snowdrifts where none had lain. Davos rallied Northmen to cut them off, but for every lieutenant felled 2 more rows. Jon dove, Rhaegal's talons tearing through an oncoming pack of whites besieging the inner gate. He leapt from saddle onto stone, rolling, longclaw in hand, and joined Brienne's shield wall. Dragonglass cleaved rotten flesh. Frost snapped beneath boots. He lost count of kills. Beside him, Theon drove an iron spear through a giant white's eye, screaming fury. Suddenly a horn blast echoed. From the Godswood, Jon's stomach lurched. He spun to see a figure cloaked in black vault, the burning trench, leaping like death incarnate toward the Heart Tree. The Night King, drawn by Bran's unmoving form. "Hold the line," Jon shouted, breaking from the fray. He sprinted across churned snow, Ghost at his side, the world a blur of screams and flame. Theon saw and followed, a handful of Ironborn behind him. They reached the Godswood in time to see the Night King emerge from smoke, pale as moonlit ice. His eyes burned cerulean. Around him, snowflakes fell upward, drawn into a vortex of unnatural cold. Theon's men hurled spears. Ice flicked his wrist, and the shafts shattered. The world seemed to hush as the Night King advanced. Theon raised his spear again, knuckles white, but Jon stopped him. "Protect Bran," he breathed. "I will face him." Theon hesitated, then nodded. Setting feet before the wheeled chair, Jon stepped onto frost-dusted grass. Between them, 2 yards of silence stretched, heavy as prophecy. He felt no hatred, only infinite cold. Longclaw glimmered with faint light. Jon's breath plumed. He thought of Ned, of Lyanna, of Rhaegar's songs, of every face that had brought him here. Then he charged. The Night King moved like smoke. Blade of ice met Valyrian steel with a shriek that cracked air. Sparks of blue and silver scattered. They clashed again. Jon felt bones jar. Frost crept along Longclaw's edge as ice met fire within the metal. Blow followed blow, too quick for thought. Jon's arm numbed, but he pressed, foot sliding on frost, driving the Night King back a step. The Ice General's face never changed. He parried, spun behind Jon, slashed. Jon ducked, felt ice kiss hair. He thrust backward. Longclaw bit cloth, but no flesh. Cold exploded against his ribs, an elbow like granite, hurling him into the Heart Tree. Bark cracked. Pain flooded. The Night King raised his spear. A scream ripped. From above, Arya fell like a meteor, dagger of Valyrian steel glinting. The Night King turned. Ice spear lunged. Steel met spear. Spear shattered. Ice dust. Arya's blade plunged toward his throat, but his hand closed around her wrist. Time froze. Jon lurched upright, vision doubling. Bran's eyes opened. Wind shrieked through leaves. Then Theon, battered and bleeding, rammed his broken spear haft into the Night King's side, knocking him off balance. Arya twisted, let her dagger drop, caught it in her other hand, and slammed it into the Night King's chest, just beneath the rib of ice. For a heartbeat nothing moved. Cracks, spider-webbed across crystal skin. Blue light pulsed once, then shattered, spewing frost like dying stars. The Night King blew apart in shards of ice that melted even as they fell. Across the yard whites collapsed, bones turning to snow. Silence thundered. Jon stared, chest heaving. Arya knelt, gasping. Theon stood swaying, and then collapsed to his knees, weeping in relief, in pain, in tired joy. Bran's lips curved. "Thank you," he whispered. And whether to Theon, to Arya, or to all the living, no one could say. High above, Viserion's corpse let out a sound like cracking stone and spiraled earthward, wings shedding ice in great slabs. Drogon and Rhaegal veered clear, roars echoing triumph. The storm overhead unraveled, clouds scattering to reveal a dawn-pink sky. Everywhere, men and women stared at their own hands, at weapons sticky with black ichor, at snow suddenly quiet. The dead were gone. The living remained. Jon helped Arya to her feet. She trembled, more from reaction than cold. Their foreheads touched. "You did it," he breathed. "We did it," she corrected, but her smile quivered. Dawn rose. Fires still burned, sparks drifting skyward like prayers. But Winterfell stood. The armies of men, ragged, bloodied, grim, stood. They spent that day weeping, tending wounds, hauling corpses of friends to pyres. The godswood accepted tears and screams alike. No songs played. The silence itself was hymn. As dusk colored the sky apricot and lavender, they gathered before a field of pyres. Jon spoke the words of the night's watch for all fallen. Daenerys added the Valyrian prayer of old Valyria, each syllable a note of loss. Sansa recited the vows of the kings of winter. When the fires were lit, the roar sounded like dragons taking flight. That night, Jon strode the walls in deepening quiet. Fresh snow drifted, hushed. Below, soldiers slept for the first time in weeks without nightmare in their eyes. In the yard, Gendry nodded on a stool, head drooping. Arya curled against a wagon wheel wrapped in a blanket that once belonged to Ned. Ghost limped through shadows, guarding. On the battlement's edge Daenerys waited, eyes on the distant north. He joined her. Neither spoke for a long time. Stars shimmered. The air smelled of wood smoke and cold iron. At last she said, "The world is born again tonight." He nodded. "And yet the world remains." She turned, eyes luminous. "What will you do with it, Aegon Targaryen?" He leaned on the stone. "Live within it. Protect it. Maybe even rule it. If ruling means serving Clyne." He met her gaze. But not alone. She searched his face. "Are you so certain the realm will accept two rulers? Does it need two? It needs leaders who remember tonight. Who remember what armies of living and dead cost." He ran a thumb along her gloved hand. "We can decide tomorrow what we call ourselves." Her smile warmed the night. "Tomorrow then." She lifted his hand, brushed cold lips to knuckles. "But tonight, just Jon and Daenerys." "Jon and Daenerys," he agreed. Wind rattled banners above them. Somewhere a baby cried, alive. Somewhere else a wolf howled, free. Dawn would bring politics. Ravens already waited. But for this cloud-scattered moment, Winterfell breathed peace. And beneath the stones of the old crypts, where kings and queens of vanished winters slept in dark, a soft tremor stirred, as though ancient dead had felt the world turn and sighed, content, before settling back into dreams that might at last be dreamless. Ka. A dawn cold and crystalline etched itself upon every broken battlement, glimmering on icicles that hung like brittle trophies from the ruined merlons. Ash from the pyres drifted in pearly veils across Winterfell's bailey, mingling with lazy flakes of new-fallen snow until the gray and the white became indistinguishable. Memory braided with fresh promise. Jon stood on the library step, his sleeves rolled, and a rag of linen in his fist, wiping soot from the stone lintel one slow stroke at a time. Each pass made almost no difference, but he kept at it because motion dulled the sudden stillness of victory and filled silence better than words. Footsteps scuffed behind him. He did not turn. He already knew the cadence. Bran, limping slightly from a cut on her thigh. She carried a wooden tub sloshing with warm, soapy water. When she spoke, her voice held the tiredness of a week without sleep and the hush of a chapel. "Leave that to the younger squires," he chided. "A king has finer matters to scrub." "I am no king," Jon answered without heat. "And I need my hands busy till the council meets." She set the tub beside him. "Even if you deny crowns, they cling. Better to accept their weight and guide where they settle than pretend they are feathers." She dipped a cloth, wrung it, and stooped beside him. Together, they scrubbed until the soot became gray swirls in the water. When at last the archway stood clean, Jon straightened, flexed stiff fingers, and surveyed the yard. Repairs already sprawled like a second army. Carpenters replanking the breached southern gate, blacksmiths reheating bent hinges, masons prizing away cracked stones. Among them moved unsullied and disciplined files, Dothraki leading limping horses, and Northmen in patched cloaks. No man seemed foreign any longer. Every tunic bore the same dark stains of butchered ice. At the center of the yard a fresh scaffold rose, not for hangings but for heralds. Flags would soon fly again. Sansa's tower raised first, then banners of houses still standing. Which sigil would top the mast after that no one yet dared bet. Wolf, dragon, or something forged of both. Across the chaos Bran wheeled into view, pushed by Podrick. Snow feathered the boy's shoulders, but neither he nor his carved weirwood chair appeared to feel the cold. His pale eyes flicked once toward Jon before drifting skyward, where gaps in shattered clouds exposed a steely winter sun. Pod halted at the smithy, and Bran spoke to Gendry. Moments later, the royal bastard, Stormforged now beyond denial, barked orders that sent boys darting for new tools. Jon wondered what vision Bran had sold him. Steel that would resist wildfire? Armor for dragons? Bran saw so far ahead that his words sometimes felt less advice than inevitability. Jon left Brienne to organize a fresh scrub crew and made for the Great Hall. Its oak doors had been gouged by blue fire. Smoke pocked their once slick faces. Two Dothraki, hair shaved high in mourning braids, pushed the wings wide for him. Inside, the long tables had been cleared again. Benches righted, floors freshly strewn with pine needles. The scent cut through lingering ash, bright as new dawn. At the dais Daenerys and Sansa stood shoulder to shoulder before the council board. An accident of placement that looked planned. Two halves of a torn banner sewn by thin gold thread. They did not speak. Their silence was measured, neither cold nor warm, but attentive. Tyrion lounged between them in a high-backed chair, quill tapping against his lips. Grey Worm, Davos, Arya, Samwell, and Lord Royce formed a rough semicircle around a sprawl of parchment maps. In the corner, Theon hunched over a cup of spiced wine, one hand bandaged to the elbow. Jon mounted the dais. The talk quieted, eyes shifting his way with the deference of men uncertain how deeply they must bow. He took the empty seat opposite Tyrion, conscious of every scrape of his boots on the newly sanded oak planks. Tyrion cleared his throat. "We weigh the next march," he said. "Word from the south grows uneasy. Cersei has clogged the Roserad with levies pulled from Old Town clear to King's Landing. No proper army, but enough spears to man walls and die screaming atop them." Davos snorted. "Better spears than sellswords if you're forced inside a city. Hungry levies open gates faster than coin." Daenerys set a fingertip on the map, where a red line marked the Roserad. "My Unsullied and the last Dothraki screamers are willing, but our wounded need rest. 1 fortnight, perhaps 2, before a full march." Sansa glanced at Jon. "The north bled deepest. Its levies cannot leave before spring's first melt. That may be moons away." "Daemon, a CJ cannot wait moons," Arya said. Her voice held no edge of threat. She stated a fact. "Cersei sharpens knives inside every hour we delay." Tyrion's quill stopped tapping. "Our best chance, however reluctant, is negotiation first. The Night King's death is boon enough to sway alliances. We ply the lords Tyrell, Tully, even the Dornish regent, any who fear Cersei's stubbornness more than they trust her coin." Jon's gaze slid to Theon. "And the Iron Fleet." Theon thumbed his rim of bandage. "Yara sails 200 keels from Pike by week's end. Euron remains at King's Landing, guarding Blackwater Bay. Sea battles lie ahead." Grey Worm's voice, low and even, cut across the murmur. "The Queen should not risk a city assault until those ships burn." Daenerys inclined her head. "Agreed." Jon rose, palms braced on the table's rough edge. "Then we strike the fleet at anchor. Dragons will clear the bay while Yara closes from seaward." A force rides the Roserwad to break Cersei's levy lines. Fast, small, mounted, harrying supply carts. Once the fleet burns and the road buckles, the city will choke. Wow. Tyrion arched a brow. A neat plan requiring 2 miracles. A dragonfire sortie through scorpion bolts thicker than snow in a blizzard, and mounted raids past every village garrisoned by Lannister lieutenants hungry for redemption. Miracles, Jon repeated. We've lately specialized in those. Theon barked a laugh that ended as cough. Sansa's lips curved despite herself. Even Tyrion smiled. Wry. Daenerys' eyes lingered on Jon, soft but searching. Aegon still carries frost wounds on his left wing. He will heal, but not today. Drogon alone cannot face every bolt. And so, I will fly Drogon, she said. Jon interjected at once. He could not help it, but she lifted a hand. I must. I was born in Dragonflame. Cersei's scorpions will aim for a king if they see one. Better they see a queen who rides fire. Silence spread. Sticky. Jon felt every counselor's stare shift between them. The known lovers whose bloodlines snarled politics like briars. If Daenerys died in the bay, crowns would tumble like dice across a wine-soaked inn table. Bran's chair rolled into the doorway. Pod pushed him halfway, then retreated. Bran's gaze took in the council with detached clarity. The scorpions on King's Landing's walls will be moved tonight, he said simply, as if announcing a change in weather. Cersei fears a pre-dawn strike. She will reposition half to the Red Keep's roof for spectacle. The ones moved lose their bolts to rusted latches. All stared. Tyrion finally coughed. How certain are your vistas? Bran's lids lowered. Certain? Jon weighed the boy's visions against the risk of trusting them. Bran had predicted the assassin's disguise, the Night King's path, even the hour of Rhaegal's necessary dive at Viserion's flank. Each time, Jon had doubted. Each time, Bran had proven right. Still, sending Daenerys alone felt wrong. 2 riders, Jon said. I'll ride with her. Rhaegal can manage short bursts. His frost wounds will ache, but no more. 2 dragons divide the bolts, twice the fire. Daenerys looked as though to protest, but gray-blue worry flickered behind her calm. She nodded. Very well. Sansa leaned forward. If both of you fall, chaos follows. The realm will tear itself apart before Cersei fires a single bolt. Have you chosen heirs? Meh. Jon's gut clenched. He opened his mouth, but words failed. Daenerys answered first. My claim falls by law before Aegon's if we wed, she said. The table reacted like struck harp strings. Shock, murmurs, Lord Royce's eyebrows arching toward his bald crown. But until then, choose an interim. Let House Stark of Winterfell hold the north and its wards, while Gendry Baratheon is legitimized to Storm's End. Tyrion Lannister will serve as hand and steward of the Iron Throne in any void. If we die, the realm is not leaderless. Then, Jon found his voice. Sansa for the north, Gendry for the Stormlands. I name Davos Seaworth Master of Ships. Let Arya command the Crown's secret watch. Arya's eyes shimmered, half amusement, half pride. Sansa inclined her head, expression unreadable. Tyrion scratched into his parchment. Settled, Davos murmured. But let us hope these parchments gather dust. And so preparation for the southern campaign consumed Winterfell for 12 days. The dragons hunted far across the neck, feasting on elk to rebuild weight. When they returned, their shadows danced like black sails over the castle. In the fields beyond the Godswood, 500 Northmen drilled with new forged pikes under Brienne's direction. Wildling women carved horns from aurochs for signal calls. Maester Wolkan oversaw tithe wagons, laden with dried fish, obsidian-tipped arrows, and a keg of hatching chicks, meant to serve as early gas warnings in subterranean tunnels should Cersei resort to wildfire. On the 13th dawn, the southern column rode out, 2,000 mounted, a ribbon of banners caught in cold sunlight. Jon rode at the fore beside Daenerys. He in black wolf-stamped plate, she in scaled silver mail that whispered when she breathed. Tyrion, Arya, Jorah, Gendry, Ser Jon Royce, and Grey Worm formed a wedge behind. Sansa remained upon the battlements until the last tail of their host vanished into drifting snow. Only then did she turn back into Winterfell's echoing chambers. The march cut south along the King's Road spine, a frozen white scar between pine ridges. Villages dotted the road, some abandoned after the war, doors gaping, others stoked with renewed hearth smoke, where survivors clung to hope. At every hamlet small folk emerged blinking, to gape at dragons coasting low, a queen's dread retinue that also meant the winter of fear might thaw. They knelt, or they waved, or they simply stared. But few spat northern curses any longer. Tales of the dead's fall traveled quicker than ravens. On the fifth evening they reached Moat Caelan's gutted towers. Before the marshland gates, an encampment blossomed, torchlights reflected in standing pools. From canvas pavilions, banners of the Reach and the Riverlands fluttered. Signs of lords who had ridden north at Bran's summons, yet arrived too late for the battle. Lord Edmure Tully, his red trout high, met Jon at the causeway. Face lined, hair threaded with silver, but his clasp proved warm. Beside him stood Ser Willis Tyrell, bastard cousin of the late Highgarden line, wearing a rose plucked from rubble. Their levies swelled the royal column by another 1,000 foot, and 300 mounted knights. Around the same campfire that night, Edmure spoke quietly of river pirates, emboldened by Lannister gold, of refugees clogging serpentine shoreways, of whispered unrest in Old Town Citadel. Tyrion listened, wine unsipped, noting which names bled most bitterness. His mind weighed potential vassals, traitors, allies. Long after the others slept, Jon sat outside his tent, tracing frost with a gloved fingertip on a battered helm. Ghost lay beside him, ears flicking at distant frog croaks. Moonlight silvered Daenerys' hair as she approached, a cloak of bearskin about her shoulders. "You doubt your plan?" She said, "No question. I doubt everything except the memory of ice in my bones," he answered. The dead were easy to name. The living blur. She knelt, fingers brushing his. "Once I swore never again to trust those who knelt from fear, only those who knelt from love. Now I wonder if I ask too high a price." Jon flipped the helm, watched moonlight pool in its dented crown. "Perhaps love is not a price but a harvest. We plant fairness, honesty, and let love grow or not." She smiled. "You sound like Sam. Sam is wiser than all our maesters." They were silent, sharing the hush of marsh reeds. Then she said, "Your name will be spoken from Dorne to White Harbor by the hour the Red Keep falls. Some will call for your coronation, and some will name me kinslayer if the queen they love dies in my place." She looked away, and for a moment he saw only the remnant girl smuggled across the narrow sea, inside a storm. "If I die, let it not be in your place. Let it be because I chose to risk my own life for a realm that gave me none." "I think," he said softly, "the realm has begun to give." Days later they crossed the Green Fork at Seaguard, ferried by barges commandeered from smugglers grateful to keep heads. Riverland's mud replaced northern tundra, birdsong replaced silent pines. Here, towns bore scars of old wars but sprouted new shoots. Thatch relaid, orchards pruned, children running again between wheel ruts. They cheered the dragons as omens rather than curses. In a meadow where buttercups would soon surface, the column divided per plan. Daenerys and Jon, each riding their dragon, soared west with Grey Worms picked unsullied aboard river barges that would follow the trident to the sea, skirting crackling Lannister watchfires. Arya, disguised already as a hedge knight with mismatched armor, slipped away south to sniff cracks in the Lannister levy camps. Gendry and Ser Jon Royce led 300 heavy horses down the Roserad to raid grain wagons. Jorah took command of Riverfoot to mask Royce, with smoke and feint. Tyrion traveled with the Queen's dragons, his mind a chessboard of ravens. Every headwind became a new dispatch, offers of truce to Dorne, Warnings to Highgarden's scattered stewards. Promises of coin to Myra's shipwrights, if they denied Euron's refits. He wrote until quill nib bled through parchment, and still letters mounted. At dusk on the 15th day of March, Jon and Daenerys banked over Maidenpool. Wings blending red into sunset. Below, carpenters rebuilding a watchtower paused, gape-mouthed. Hammers mid-swing. On the strand half-burnt hulks jutted from ebb tide. Skeletons of ships Euron had torched seasons ago. A child pointed skyward, eyes wide, until her mother jerked her beneath a lean-to. But not before Jon saw hope flicker bright as torch flame in those eyes. For a heartbeat guilt cinched his chest. Hope was fragile, easily shattered by falling scorpion bolts. He landed Rhaegal on a clifftop overlooking Blackwater Bay 4 nights later. The air smelled of salt and soot. The city's lights a smear of orange across the dark water. From this vantage, the scorpions atop the Red Keep were plain, silhouettes against torchfire. Bran's prophecy held. Many were oddly angled, their arms unmanned, as though repositioning crews had left tasks unfinished. Still, dozens along the city walls remained battle-ready, iron bolts glinting. Below, Euron's iron fleet spread like an oil stain across the bay. Dozens of masted monsters plated in black, prows carved as krakens, sails furled yet watchful. Yara's keels lurked beyond the horizon, waiting for the signal. Daenerys crouched at Drogon's neck ridge, wind tossing her braids. Tyrion, riding in a sling harness behind her, murmured final numbers. 26 scorpions along Mudgate Wall, 14 on the chain tower, 6 on the keep roof, most rust-latched, God's willing. We strike first at the flagship Silence. Her fall unseats Euron's signal network. Jon nodded grimly. We break their eyes, then their heart. Dragonfire lit the night. Drogon dived, wings cupping air. Rhaegal followed, roar echoing. Bolts loosed, streaking silver, too slow. Drogon rolled, flame gouting over nearest deck. Wood burst, tar hissed. Men screamed. Rhaegal's breath sheared through sails, setting masts aflame. Scorpions pivoted. One bolt grazed Drogon's hind claw, tearing scale. He shrieked, but steadied. Jon's pulse hammered with every near miss. He steered Rhaegal into a steep climb and dive. Scorching 4 scorpions clustered bow to bow. 2 fell silent, crews charred. The others jammed, gears warped by radiant heat. Below, the Silence lurched under Drogon's onslaught, her kraken figurehead sagging molten. Euron bellowed from the quarterdeck, firing a scorpion himself, but the bolt went wide, vanishing into dark waves. Drogon's next pass ignited the powder stores. An explosion punched skyward, hurling men and mast fragments. The flagship split, began to sink, stern first. Iron studs sizzling. Yara's fleet burst from seaward like long-shrouded ghosts, black sails bellied by offshore wind. Flaming arrows arced from their bows, landing among Euron's scattering formation. Grey Worm's river barges, oars muffled, slipped behind Lannister galleons, and unleashed grappling nets of chain tempered with dragonglass shards. Sailors who grasped to cut ropes found hands shredded. Meanwhile, Rhaegal veered inward over the city wall, where scorpions along Mudgate loosed in frantic succession. 3 bolts hissed by Jon's knee. One clipped Rhaegal's wounded wing, tearing new rent in membrane. Jon felt the jolt like hammer strike through saddle. He coaxed the dragon higher, out of angle. Heart churning. From the Red Keep, torches flashed in predetermined pattern. Cersei's order to unleash wildfire casks. Tyrion, seeing it from Drogon's back, shouted to Daenerys. She banked, diving for the keep roof. Scorpion crews scattered. Bolts clanged wide. Drogon's talons slammed stone, smashing 2 scorpions before they could fire. Tyrion dropped from the harness, rolling behind a parapet, and with quick hands unlatched oil flasks he'd slung earlier. He hurled them across scorpion gears. Daenerys spoke one word, and Dragonflame turned weapons to pools of slag. Wildfire casks on the far parapet, primed but not yet sparked, detonated under the furnace gust. Plumes of green leapt sky high, sheathing the keep's tower in viridescent hell. But Drogon was already banking away. wings singed but intact. Smoke boiled. Bells clanged across King's Landing, frantic. Civilian screams rose from Fishmonger Square. Yet no fires spread among common ward roofs. Dragonfire had struck only ships and scorpions, not homes. Jon prayed the city watched and understood. At sea, half the Iron Fleet now burned. Black hulls upended. Sailors flailing in slicks of flaming pitch. Euron leapt from the collapsing silence onto a Drummond, rallying archers. Yara's flagship Widow's Wail ran that same Drummond moments later, iron-shod beak splintering the Kraken's ribbing. Boarders surged, axes rang. Amid the melee, Euron and Yara met blade to blade at last. Jon, circling above, could not hear their curses, but he saw sparks each time Yara's axagash caught the torchlight. Blood flashed. Then Euron stumbled backward beneath a swipe, tripped on charred plank, and vanished into a patch of burning tar. At dawn, only smoking hulks bobbed in Blackwater Bay. Ash whirled with gull feathers. Rhaegal settled on the King's Gate bastion, exhaling steam like a tired stallion. Jon slid from saddle and limped along the wall to find Daenerys waiting atop the blasted parapet, hair plastered with soot, Tyrion blood-specked at her side. "It's done," she said, voice hoarse from smoke. "The fleet is ash." Jon leaned against stone, and the people saw dragons that spared houses. The Queen of Mercy. Now, she met his gaze. Fierce, weary. Mercy buys loyalty longer than terror. She turned to Tyrion. "Send ravens. Offer clemency to every gatehouse captain who opens doors by nightfall. Any who shut them we leave to starve when spring floods fail." Tyrion bowed. "Your words, my quills." Inside the city walls, panic blossomed and abated as quickly. Food storehouse chains remained intact. Water sellers resumed trade. Red Keep guards doubled yet dared not ride into the streets where small folk gathered to stare at gutted mastheads scattered along shoreline. Rumor outran heralds. The Dragon Queen and Wolf King would storm the gates. The Dragon Queen would pardon. Some swore they saw Jon Snow above the bay, and imagined Ned Stark rode from death to claim his daughter's vengeance. Others claimed Daenerys had been slain, replaced by a fire demon wielding golden eyes. Markets bristled with guesses. Cersei remained eerily quiet. Ravens sent to the Red Keep received no answer. Scouts reported inner gatehouses barred, but no armies massed. The lioness waited behind stone heavier than crowns. 5 nights passed. Yara's keel patrols captured the last 3 longships fleeing north for Lannisport. On the 6th morning, trumpets pealed from the city wall. A single white banner hoisted above the mud gate. Tyrion, summoned to treat, rode with Davos, both under marks of peace. On return they wore identical expressions of wary surprise. Sir Bran opens gates at sundown. Tyrion relayed to the War Council. Cersei grants parley to Queen Daenerys and King Aegon. No more than 50 knights escorting. She claims to hold no wildfire caches within the city beyond what already burned. She invites us into the throne room at midday 2 days hence. Muttered disbelief circled. Samwell frowned. Too easy. Jon rubbed the bridge of his nose. Cersei never does anything easy. She wants something. Time. Grey Worm said flatly. Time to spring her trap. Arya returned with Royce, sat cross-legged on a chest. She unsheathed the stiletto and began polishing. "We go anyway," she remarked. "A knife waits in every shadow, but the best way to find it is to lure it out." Daenerys' glance at Jon held iron. "We accept parley. 50 nights, no more, no less. For every deceit she plots, we will show 20 truths. The realm will watch." So on the first of the thawing moons, with warm breath rising from street vents, Queen Daenerys Stormborn and King Aegon Targaryen rode through the breached mud gate, 50 knights in tow. Upon the outer ramp, Jon felt every eye on his back. Nobles peering from manors, potboys on rooftops, widows at shuttered windows. Some spat over sills, but more simply watched in uneasy awe. Beside him, Daenerys' posture never faltered. She wore plain wool trimmed in silver fur. No crown, her sword sheathed, hands uncovered. The city saw a woman, not a conqueror. Jon prayed the difference mattered. Inside the Red Keep's courtyard, Cersei awaited atop the marble stairs, flanked by Gregor Clegane in dull basalt armor, his face hidden, and Lord Qyburn clutching parchment like a shield. Cersei's green gown shimmered, shoulders scaled in golden pauldrons, shaped as lion claws. Her smile had the curve of a scorpion bolt. "Welcome home, niece and nephew," she called as they dismounted. How fitting the last Targaryen children return astride beasts that once built this palace. Daenerys climbed 2 steps. "Your people need bread, not barbs. We come offering peace if you release your claim." Cersei's laugh rang brittle. "Release my claim. I hold the throne. Peacemakers bring armies. I bring a pen. Shall we sign where Robert failed?" Jon stepped forward. "Sign that the realm may live unbroken. House Lannister retains lands west of the Golden Tooth. Full pardons for retainers. Mines untaxed 5 harvests. In return you yield the Iron Throne and stand trial for crimes, named by Council of 7 Kingdoms." "Trial," Cersei repeated. "By 7 bent knees with minds already judged." "No." She flicked a glance to Qyburn, who unfolded his parchment and spoke in oily tones. "A proposal of equal weight. Queen Cersei consents to betrothal between herself and King Aegon, uniting claims, sparing war. The Dragon Queen may wed the royal hand, should he survive arraignment." Mendoza. Stunned silence. Tyrion's eyes widened. Daenerys stiffened. Jon felt ice crawl his spine. "Marry Cersei." The notion slithered like rot. Cersei's smirk widened. "Aegon Targaryen unites dragon and wolf. Unite lion and dragon as well. The realm will sing of peace while we pluck its roses together." Tyrion found his voice, ragged. "You propose marriage with the nephew you tried to murder?" Her gaze snapped downward. "I propose the realm's only bloodless solution. I hold the throne. You hold 2 dragons. We share bed and crown. Let houses Stark and Baratheon rule their corners. Let the Reach grow wheat. Children of our union bind the land." "And now?" Jon swallowed bile. Daenerys stepped beside him, her voice steady. "I am his betrothed." Cersei's laugh returned. A glass chime. "A bastard's promise made under snow is not law." "Aegon, speak. Does the thought disgust you so?" "Others found me comely once." Jon measured the courtyard guards. Numbers thin. Archers absent. A parley indeed, but tension crackled. He forced calm. "Your offer is insult, not peace. I will not share crown or bed with a queen who slaughters children." "Then I wonder." Her smile snapped shut. "Children burn beneath your dragonfire even now in the bay." "No." Jon's voice lifted. "Only ships that brought sellswords and bones of my kin." He let the next words carry beyond the courtyard. "I refuse your hand. I claim the throne by right of birth and by choice of realm. Surrender or face dragon wrath." Cersei's face mottled. She did not shout. Instead she turned to Qyburn, murmured. He nodded once. Then she faced them. Expression wiped blank. "Then winter continues, longer than any corpse army." She waved a bare hand. "Leave my sight before I remember my scorpions still stand." They left. Behind them the gate slammed. From ramparts, watchers hissed curses at lions, cheers at dragons, or simply muttered. Among the escort, Arya lifted helm visor, her dark eyes glittering. "That went well," she said. Tyrion exhaled shakily. "The game is cast. She will not yield. We meet steel with flame." Daenerys looked southward where smoke from wrecked ships drifted over the bay. "No," she said quietly. "We meet her pride with the realm's scorn." She addressed Jon. "We break the wheel by refusing to spin it. We will not burn King's Landing." Jon studied her, relief and worry mingling. "If not fire, what?" "Water," she answered. "We starve the castle, not the city. We ring the Red Keep with blockade, cut off wells piped from Tumbledown. Let Cersei's gold feed only her guards. When her own lords begin to whisper, she will walk down alone. Tyrion's eyes widened at the audacity. See, give the keep only, intricate. The small folk may revolt. They revolt against her, Daenerys said. If we keep markets stocked, water flowing, the people will choose. Jon nodded. We bring grain by river, fish by sea, and post healers in Flea Bottom. Compare our mercy to her hunger. And if she unleashes wildfire inside the keep? Davos asked. Then the lioness burns herself, Arya murmured. A fitting torch. And so began the siege of 7 wells, named for the aqueducts funneling sweet water beneath the Red Keep. Yara's keels blockaded the boating gate, while Unsullied fortified along Aegon's high hill, raising earthworks overnight. Dothraki patrolled the city streets at trot, sabers sheathed, their presence reminder enough. Jon moved among bakeries ensuring grain rations. He walked with Ghost through Flea Bottom, distributing salve and winter onions from wagons painted with both direwolf and dragon. Mothers gaped. Children swarmed. When Jon knelt to ladle porridge, whispers bloomed. The Wolf King fed where Robert's men once flogged. Cersei responded first with silence, then with propaganda. Criers claiming dragons planned to sell orphans to Essos. Story sheets accusing Daenerys of murdering viseries. True. And Jon of murdering his father. False. Small folk plastered them as kindling under soup pots. Each sunrise more Lannister guards deserted outer posts for wine dens where gold no longer bought bread. Qyburn's little birds died or vanished. Where they failed, Bran's ravens succeeded, delivering leaflets that promised a silver stag for every surrendered scorpion. Within a fortnight, 2/3 of the engines stacked at the Red Keep's foot were dragged into courtyards and burned by their own crews in exchange for coin and clemency. Inside the keep, famine crept. Cersei ordered stockpiles gathered, but rats ate half before inventory. Rainwater barrels soured. She remained on balcony, staring across the bay at dragons circling lazy spirals above wrecks, now scoured by tide. One evening, Tyrion walked the city wall with Jon, lantern swinging between. Every raven south of the neck speaks your name, he said. But not all sing sweet. Some hiss bastard, others whisper usurper. Factions rise like yeast. Bendanidol. Jon leaned on Merlon. If Daenerys and I wed before the moon's turn, the factions diminish. Our heirs carry both lines. The throne stands uncontested. Tyrion halted. Have you asked her? Soon. After the siege ends. I will not bind myself while war could take me first. Pragmatic. Tyrion resumed. Remember, marriage solves titles, not tempers. Stark lords may grow uneasy beneath dragon heat, Reach lords uneasy beneath wolf winter. Prepare gifts. Jones' laugh puffed fog. I shall prepare. The siege dragged through the first thaw. Then, into soft rains of spring. Gardens in the city bloomed. Courtiers inside the keep stared at withered vines. One humid dusk, a white sheet fluttered from the Tower of the Hand. Cersei's banner of negotiation. The next morning, Ser Bran crept from a postern gate with parchment sealed. Tyrion broke the seal before assembled war council. He read aloud. Cersei Lannister, rightful queen, offers abdication in exchange for safe exile to Casterly Rock, unconditional amnesty for her guard, and guarantee of independence for the crown lands under her son, if child she carries is a boy. Shockwave. Davos swore softly. Sam pushed spectacles up nose. Jon looked to Daenerys, whose face remained calm. She is not with child, Daenerys said. A falsehood spun last year to retain Jaime. Jaime is dead. The tale lingers only as shield. Tyrion's voice wavered. She will never live content as Lady of Casterly Rock. She plots daggers even now. Then, Jon exhaled. We reject. Daenerys nodded. But we counteroffer clemency on Dragonstone, under watch. No armies, no gold mines, only cliff and sea. She lives in comfort but without claws. Tyrion drafted, sealed, dispatched. 3 mornings later, a boom rocked the city. Wildfire caches detonating beneath the Red Keep's granary, Cersei's answer. The blast torched half the courtyard, killing 200. Mostly her own desperate garrison. Green flame licked windows, until rain quenched it. Smoke towered above the city, dark against blue. Daenerys watched from the wall, eyes shining with unshed grief. She burns her own despite mercy. Jon's jaw clenched. It ends tonight. At moonrise, Arya slipped through drains beneath the keep. Wearing a dead guard's face, she prowled halls that once cradled Targaryen kings and Baratheon feasts. She found Cersei and Maegor's holdfast before an altar of skulls. Dragon skulls returned from the cellars, candles licking bone. Qyburn hovered, reading the seven-pointed star, as though holy fire would birth salvation. Gregor Clegane loomed, sword double-handed. Arya watched from pillar shadow. Not yet, she told her racing heart. But other fates converged. Tyrion, guided by memory of secret tunnels, had come seeking final mercy for his sister, or perhaps final justice. He stepped from a hidden doorway and halted, aghast at the altar of skulls. Cersei spun, eyes rimmed red, and for one instant, brother and sister stood alone in a hush thick with childhood ghosts. Arya slipped backward, unseen, leaving them to their end. She returned to the drain, crawled into night, blood pounding. Inside the holdfast words rose, knifing. Cersei jeered treason. Tyrion pleaded surrender, telling of empty wells and the people's love for the Dragon Queen. Cersei sneer twisted. Let the people love their butcher. I love none, and I sit higher than all. She motioned to Gregor. The mountain advanced. Tyrion drew no steel, only stepped aside. Bronze rang as steel met stone. Behind Gregor another sword had struck. Theon Greyjoy, gaunt but determined, having followed Tyrion through the same tunnel, lunged again. Gregor swung. The crack of shield rim on Theon's arm echoed. Tyrion seized Qyburn's candle, flung wax and flame into the giant's eye slit. For a blink Gregor staggered. Theon plunged his broken scar spear into the gap beneath Gorget. Valyrian steel point. Asha's wedding gift, found corded undead flesh. With a wheeze like bellows torn Gregor toppled, crashing through the skull altar. Cersei shrieked. Footsteps pounded. Lannister guards rushing. Tyrion grabbed Cersei's wrist. Choose life, he hissed. No. Outside bells began to toll. Arya, already in the gatehouse, rang surrender by turn of crank. The city erupted in cheers, shouts, confusion. Cersei wrenched free, eyes wild, but Theon's blade hovered at her throat. She froze. Of the city dragons roared, not in fury but in triumph. Doors flew wide. Unsullied columns marched unopposed into courtyards that stank of burnt grain. Small folk leaned from balconies, waving scraps of cloth white with flower dust. As dawn pinked the sky, Jon and Daenerys ascended the steps of the Red Keep. Tyrion met them halfway, cheeks tear-streaked, signaling success, but sorrow too. Theon stood beside, face ghost-pale, blood at his lip. Between them walked Cersei Lannister in chains for the first time, hair unbound, gown smeared with green ash. She glared at the new rulers of Westeros with loathing so bright it seemed to spark. Daenerys regarded her silently, then addressed the crowd forming in the courtyard below. The lioness is caged. The realm is free. Cheers crashed skyward. Bells tolled again, not for surrender now but for birth. Bells of a new reign. Jon faced the city. His voice carried on the fresh breeze. No more shall crown weigh heavier than life. We will forge a council of lands, chosen by lords and freeholders both, to guide the throne. Let this day mark the first breath of a realm where birth decides nothing and deeds decide all. The roar of approval shook banners. Daenerys turned to Jon, eyes shining with something fiercer than ambition. She drew from her belt a plain silver circlet. I would share rule, as wife, as equal. Her voice trembled but did not break. Will you accept, free of fear? Jon looked not at the circlet, but at her. The breaker of chains, the mother of raised villains, and spared innocents. He knelt, took the circlet, and rose, placing it upon her brow before the thousands now crowding the terrace. I accept. Free of fear. She removed a second circlet, dark iron edged with wolf heads, and set it on his head. Then let the world know Aegon and Daenerys reign together. The bells pealed thrice. Coronation festivities spilled for 7 days from Dragonstow's tide pools to the orchards of Highgarden. Grain shipments reached Winterfell, gleaming with first shock of sun. Dothraki raced open fields unharassed, their children laughing at gulls. Unsullied drilled volunteers and spearwork then shared black bean stew beside them. Lords arrived to pledge. Lothar Bracken with River Run wine, Robin Arryn with Moonstone, Dornish Regent Illyrius Sand, released from dungeon, bearing citrus blossoms. Each man or woman knelt before 2 thrones set side by side in the Red Keep's refurbished hall. One wrought from melted scorpion bolts, the other tempered from swords, Jon had gathered at Winterfell. Together, they formed a single step, so neither seat loomed above the other. In hidden alcoves, scribes drafted charters designing the new Great Council. Every great house, one voice. Every region, one freeholder vote. Tyrion presided with quill and cup. Samwell pored over histories to avoid old pitfalls. Davos griped about grammar while suggesting fairness for port levies. Bran, though seldom leaving Winterfell, wrote letters by Raven guiding them past dead ends of precedent before they hit. Cersei sailed to Dragonstone, guarded by Unsullied and Theon, there to live under watch in a sea-wind fortress that once caged Daenerys' childhood. She paced walls, snarled at gulls, plotted in silence. Perhaps she would forever. Jon spared little thought. He returned north for harvests turning, to mend barns and fences, to bury those whose bones thawed from winter fields. Ghost ran free under bright birch canopies. Arya took ship west one sunrise, chasing edge of world. She hugged Jon hard, whispered, "No kings on the sunset sea," and smiled his worry away. Sansa governed Winterfell while maesters replaced fallen beams and children learned to read from books once hidden behind moldy crypt doors. She wrote Jon weekly. Reports of lords bickering, of wildlings planting barley now that snow melted, of Bran's latest dream of glassy seas. When autumn cloaked the neck in swaths of russet, Jon rode south again. At every inn strangers greeted him not as bastard, not as king, but as Aegon of House Targaryen Stark, Bridge of Wolf and Dragon. They handed him honey cakes, new forged horseshoes, sketches of battles he barely remembered in haze. He accepted each with shy gratitude. On the eve of winter's first breath, he crossed Blackwater and saw the city dappled bronze beneath sunset. The Red Keep rose, restored, scorpion shadows banished. On the parapet Daenerys waited, hair loose, gown plain as the night they first spoke in Dragonstone's painting hall. Drogon soared above, circle wide, then settled beyond spires, content. She met him not in throne room but in the Godswood courtyard transplanted from Winterfell. Saplings scouted by Northmen, planted in rich soil carted 600 miles. The heart tree yet a child, trunk thin, but its red leaves fluttered like promises. She stood beneath them, and when he dismounted, she kissed him, tasting of sea salt and apple wine. Welcome home. She whispered. He closed his eyes, inhaled her hair, the sapling's scent, the distant harbor salt. Home, he echoed. And though wars would rise again, as they must, for men forget, this moment held the still, unshaken hush of a world between heartbeats, where long-shadowed legacies melted like dawn frost, and a new song began, low but certain, woven of fire and snow and the quiet, durable courage of those who choose, each day to kneel to no throne but the future they forged together. Wow. K. Mist rose off the Blackwater as night surrendered to a pewter dawn, scaling the Red Keep's walls like a slow tide until the battlement stones wept with dew. Lanterns guttered along every parapet, their soot-smudged glass catching the first hint of sunlight and answering with thin, quavering reflections. On a narrow balcony overlooking the bay, Jon watched the gray water stir beneath the harbor chains. Far below, yawning dockhands turned capstans to haul in netfuls of silver writhing fish. The slap of cod against deck planks rose faintly like intermittent applause. Small, ordinary sounds. Fragile as a newly hatched chick. Yet in them he heard a promise of peace, sturdier than iron. Behind him doors opened, letting in the clink of armor. Grey Worm emerged, helmet tucked beneath one arm. The bare curve of his scalp glinting. He bowed in silence, offered a folded parchment, and withdrew again without disturbing the hush. Jon cracked the seal. Roose rose on grey field. Lady Sansa's cipher. Ink smelled fresh, still sharp. The letter spoke of late harvests in the neck, a modest surplus of rye that might travel south before snows, Maester Wolkin's cure for lung tremors, sweeping the flint's finger, and Bran's latest request for ravens trained to fly by night, as well as day. Sansa's script, once girlish loops, had settled into lines of crisp strokes. Confident, direct. Jon felt the warmth of home within those stern letters. The North endured, and in its endurance he sensed an anchor. A gentle clang echoed from the rookery tower, reminding him of the hour. Council. Datil. He tucked the parchment into his doublet and strode inside, down corridors that no longer smelled of burnt tar, but fresh lime wash. Marble mosaics, scrubbed until their lost colors returned, glimmered as he passed. Dragons chasing wolves, roses twined around spear shafts, krakens devouring galleons. All the histories of Westeros, sealed under resin and hope. When he entered the small council chamber, the other chairs were already filled. Daenerys sat at the table's head, silver hair braided and caught in a simple clasp of jet carved like an open hand. Tyrion lounged to her right, quill twirling between fingers stained blue by ink. Samwell occupied the maester's seat in thick grey robes. He still blushed whenever servants greeted him as Archmaester Tarly, but his eyes gleamed behind new spectacles. Brienne, newly named Sworn Shield to the dual thrones, stood behind Sansa's vacant chair, her presence quiet as a cairnstone. On the left, Gendry Baratheon, Lord of Storms and now, shuffled bronze-sheeted ledgers, and Missandei of Neath recorded minutes with crisp, unbroken focus. Daenerys lifted her gaze as Jon claimed the wolf-carved seat between Tyrion and Sam. No crown adorned her brow at council, but command settled on her shoulders more visibly than any diadem. She offered a slight nod. Warmth and business entwined. "We begin," she said, voice clear. Master of coin. Tyrion set quill to desk. "Two matters. First, the Reach offers a low-interest grain loan for flea-bottom granaries on condition their levy to the crown drops by a fifth for 3 years. Fair, given their fields now feed half the crown lands. But it cuts into projected restoration funds for the guild towers." "Banderol." Jon leaned forward. "Guild towers can wait. Bread cannot." Gendry drummed knuckles in agreement. "Every dock crate I unload bears the Tyrell rose these days. They deliver, so we bargain." "Second," Tyrion continued, "Bravos presses for overdue interest on Robert's war debt. 10 years of missed payments. They threaten, politely, to curtail credit. I propose sending a delegation bearing proof of our new treasury orders and a quarter payment now. The rest we negotiate after next harvest." "Then no." Sam cleared his throat. "The free cities respect learning. I would accompany the envoy, present our accounts with impartial maester's seal." Daenerys approved. "Take Ser Davos. Bravos y bankers esteemed sailors who survived storms. They turned next to the Dornish frontier." Missandei read from a dispatch. "Scattered raiders in the Prince's Pass, rumored sellsword remnants from the Lannister levies loosed by the siege. Brienne volunteered to ride south with a small honor guard." She longed, she said, to taste desert air that did not freeze the lungs. Daenerys assented and ordered Dothraki outriders to escort, their horses better suited to stony passes. Jon listened, noting how swiftly debates had softened since the siege. Once, tongues clashed like swords. Now compromise came quicker, as though all remembered how ashes tasted. Even so, points of friction lurked beneath every ledger. Gold mines at Casterly Rock lay fallow after years of overdigging. Ports of the Narrow Sea demanded tariffs on Greyjoy vessels claiming amnesty yet smuggling Essosi wine. Wildling tribes still balked at kneeling for land grants, though they tilled the soil as freeholders. A realm rebuilt was still a realm of men, and men quarreled. When the routine agenda ended, Daenerys raised a new scroll bound in green ribbon. A petition from the faith. She announced, High Septon Lucian requests audience regarding restoration of Seps destroyed under Cersei. Murmurs circled. Tyrion's mouth tightened. He had scarce love for sparrows or their robed shepherds. Daenerys caught Jon's glance. Opinions? Jon shrugged lightly. Restoring worship spaces is simple goodwill. But the faith once armed itself. Set terms. Rebuild, yes, but no militant orders without crown consent. Wise, Brienne said. Steel belongs to guards, not preachers. Tyrion jotted. I shall draft the crown's conditions. Daenerys sealed consensus with a tap of her quill, then folded her hands. Last matter. Master Bran's letter. She deferred to Jon. Jon retrieved Sansa's note and read Bran's addendum aloud. 3 ravens sighted over the shivering sea, white as snow yet bearing crimson eyes, steering for the sunset shores. Bran's sight trailed them until fog of sorcery cut off view. He expressed curiosity, not alarm, and wondered if ancient magics slept still on lonely western isles. Sam's eyebrows arched. Crimson-eyed ravens, sighted only in legends of the first men's exodus. Bran may be glimpsing remnants of those who went farther than Valyria. Tyrion exhaled. Excellent. Our land bleeds copper, our fleets rot, and now the West sends ghost birds. Pray they carry grain. Then, Nisho. Daenerys smiled at his sarcasm but studied Jon. He caught her thought. Arya sailed beyond sunset months ago on the Kraken's reach. If ravens bearing unknown magic prowled that horizon, they might brush her path. He forced calm. Arya thrived in storms. Council adjourned, each member peeling away to duties. Jon lingered outside the chamber, gazing through an arched window at the bay glittering silver. Daenerys joined him. One more item, she said softly. Aegon Targaryen's wedding feast lacks a date. Heat flushed his cheeks despite the cool draft. Name one. High harvest, she murmured. When wagons groan and lords grow generous. Very well. His smile was tentative. Hopeful. Shall we bind it to the Great Council ratification? Give the realm 2 reasons to feast. She touched his wrist. 2 reasons to believe tomorrow. They wed beneath the open sky on the hill of Rhaenys, where once dragonfire blackened earth, but now spring grass rolled in bright swaths. Bran came south for the first time since the war, carried on a palanquin borne by silent strong men. He spoke the binding words as Septon Lucian blessed water from the Blackwater rush, and Sam read aloud clauses of the new Great Council Charter. Laughter mingled with law. Vows wove through statute. Jon's cloak bore both sigils, ghost white direwolf stitched on one shoulder, red 3-headed dragon on the other. The threads interlaced so closely the beasts seemed chasing one another in play rather than war. Daenerys wore no crown, only a twist of windflowers, gathered from fields around the ruined sept of Baelor. Rebirth over rubies. At dusk, Drogon and Rhaegal wheeled above the banquet tables, tracing a slow circle. Lanterns dangling from their harnesses dripped sparks that fell like meteor showers before hissing into the fountain pools. Children shrieked delight. Drunk sellswords cowered then laughed at themselves. A dwarf juggler spun wooden dragons painted crimson and ivory until his wrists ached. Grey Worm, coaxed from watch duty, drank 1 goblet of spiced wine before solemnly declaring Neethi Butterfly's superior beverage. Even former enemies joined. Sir Giles Rosby timidly presented Jon with a cask of orange brandy. Jon accepted, remembering the man's father mocked him once as Snow the cripple's whelp. Time's churn washed many grudges smooth. But peace widened cracks elsewhere. 3 nights after nuptials, a hooded assassin crept through Dragonstow's lower kitchens, blade smeared with basilisk blood. A kitchen girl spotted him adjusting a vial. Her scream summoned Unsullied. Interrogation yielded little. Only a coin stamped with a shattered spear. Golden Company mark. The Sellsword Legion. Scattered after their failure under Cersei, had regathered along the disputed lands and sold skills anew. Their captain now claimed descent from Blackfire lines forgotten by most. Daenerys convened war council. "We cannot chase every dagger across narrow sea," she said. But worry darkened her eyes. "Yet, if they forge reason to reclaim Westeros, we must answer before seeds sprout." Tyrion proposed sending Ser Jorah to Volantis, where red priests whispered of a silver-haired queen chosen by flame. Let his knighthood and her legend stir doubt. Among Sellswords, Gendry pledged ships. Brienne readied spears. Bran wrote of tidings from his ravens, tracing salesman routes of poison from Tyrosh to Myr. Plans nested within plans. The war no longer brewed on Westerosi soil. Jon felt weight returning. Never the bone-deep dread of ice armies, but subtler, silkier. He spent twilights on the walls, weighing gull cries against distant thunder. One evening he found Tyrion there, sipping orange brandy. "Cold wind," Tyrion muttered, offering the flask. "Your brandy, quite palatable." Jon drank. "Tau. Storm's building. Always is." Tyrion leaned on parapet. "Do you wonder how long peace lasts? Every hour. Then you're wiser than most kings." He drew a folded letter. From Sothorios. "A Maester Dennet sailed past a ruined Valyrian outpost, and swears fire burned there last moon. Fire too large for any hearth. He thinks a dragon sleeps in that jungle. And now..." Jon's mind leapt to Drogon's brood-ache. Daenerys said sometimes he vanished for days, reappearing lean as if he'd flown half the world. If another dragon stirred, others might chase it. Blackfires, Pentoshi princes, fool singers. Dragons birthed legends and war followed legends. Tyrion sighed. "I tell you only so you do not mistake calm seas for shallow ones." Jon pocketed the letter. At his side, Ghost nudged his fingers. "We'll be ready," he said. Autumn birthed the first great council under the twin thrones. Tapestried pavilions bloomed on the field of fires, chosen for its grim lesson. Once dragons burned armies there. Now men sought to settle differences with words. Lords great and small arrived on barge, on wagon, on palanquin. Freeholders elected by town moots rode dusty carts bearing their community seals. They camped in concentric circles around a vast wooden hall raised for the occasion. No stone, so no one house could claim it. No pillars, so no voice might echo louder than another's. Bran presided as speaker. His ravens perched along open rafters like silent scribes. Sam drafted each motion in 4 languages. Debates lasted until throats cracked, but decisions emerged. River tolls equalized. The faith barred from raising arms without unanimous council consent. Coastal levies standardized by ship tonnage rather than fealty. A northern clause permitting snowborn settlements self-rule if they registered population counts with Winterfell's Castell. Nothing revolutionary alone, but woven together they formed a lattice of shared responsibility. On the final evening, freeholder Ellen Page, a weaver from Fairmarket, rose late and proposed a seed tax. Each great lord to gift 30 seeds of their signature crop to border villages, ravaged by war, to plant hope alongside harvest. Some scoffed, others clapped mild approval. Then Daenerys herself seconded. Citing the burden of young fields in Slaver's Bay, she once tended in exile. The vote passed amid applause, and later ballads called it seed of the realm, small as promise, vast as future. After council closed, Jon wandered the empty tent lanes, lantern swinging. He felt the hush of freshly turned fall earth, smelled wood smoke, heard faint laughter from distant camps. He sensed not triumph but a fragile living heartbeat that belonged to all those who dared gather beneath canvas instead of shields. Peace could never be a wall. It must breathe, grow, change. A whisper preceded Bran's arrival. The wheelchair moved almost silently, pod steps muffled by straw. Bran gazed past Jon as though through fabric of night. "I watched the council through Weirwood's eyes," he said. "The realm chose humility tonight." Jon crouched, picking up a dropped seed packet, rich barley stamped with Tyrell Rose. He placed it in Bran's lap. "Humility sows better fields than pride." Bran nodded fractionally. "Far west, Arya walks a shore no map has named. She found ruins older than leaf or bone, carved with spirals like those the White Walkers made in snow. Something sleeps there, dreaming of sons that died before men spoke. She is not afraid, but I fear for her." Jon closed eyes. A cold breeze rustled empty tents. "Will she return?" "Wolves always seek pack," Bran murmured. "Even lone ones." Jon's throat tightened. "Keep watch over her." "I do. As I watch you." Bran's gaze sharpened, briefly human. "Beware the shadow of a broken crown. Some who served lions now bait krakens, hoping to drag throne and seed down together." Jon understood. Scattered Lannister loyalists, restless Greyjoy raiders, Blackfire pretenders. Night fell, but ambitions never slept. He rose. "Then we guard the shores, and we plant barley." Bran's smile was small. "A dragon needs no plow, yet seeds flourish in its shadow." Winter returned lighter, more hesitant. Snows dusted King's Landing but melted by noon. In the Red Keep's Godswood courtyard, the young heart tree stretched new limbs skyward, its red leaves whisking soft over sculpted stone benches. Jon often sat beneath it reading missives. One from Arya, about ocean swells peppered with glowing fish. One from Tormund boasting a harvest of mammoth bones repurposed to build a hall. One from Ser Jorah in Volantis recounting red priestesses, singing of a dawn queen whose flame would heal old scars. On the eve of Maiden's Day, Daenerys joined him. She eased onto the bench, her belly rounding gently beneath wolf and dragon, embroidered velveteen. She placed his hand upon the swell. "He kicks whenever bells ring," she laughed. "Perhaps he thinks he is a drum." Tears pricked Jon's eyes, unexpected. Sharp. Life within life. A pulse that cared nothing for councils, debts, or daggers. "Hey?" he whispered. She shrugged. Or she. Midwives argue. Either way. Child of spring. Bran foretold a girl, but Bran's paths change. Jon drew her close. "Whatever comes, we guard." Lantern light shimmered through red leaves above them, casting motes that flitted like distant fireflies. Somewhere beyond walls, forge hammers rang late shift. Farther on the docks, sailors sang bawdy verses. A realm breathing. The bells tolled 9th hour, and as predicted, the babe kicked. Daenerys laughed again, a sound Jon realized he had not heard enough since dragons first shrieked over Meereen. He joined her laughter, felt the heart tree's gaze, faceless yet watchful. Felt Bran's ravens turn above streaked moon. Felt Drogon rumble somewhere on a tower perch, like a slumbering mountain with breath of smoke. In that moment, he understood peace was no destination but a road of endless turns, paved with seeds and guarded by wary hearts, and sometimes dragons. Every dawn would bring fresh negotiations, whispered threats, bright hopes. Yet dawn would keep coming if enough hands nudged the wheel toward morning. He kissed Daenerys's temple. She rested against him, hand resting atop his over their unborn child. And beyond the walls, beneath a sky washed clean by starlight, the realm exhaled, not in relief, for storms still brewed on horizons unseen, but in acceptance of its own fragile, stubborn heartbeat, carried now by every seed planted, every raven loosed, every quiet vow kept by those who lived on when the great calamities had passed. Thus the song that began in winter's deepest night continued, note by shimmering note. Not a triumphant chorus, but a steady melody woven of ice and fire, and the humble courage of men and women who decided, again and again, that tomorrow was worth the tending.